Welcome to Headline Hub Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The night sky over western Russia is now a battlefield, transformed by the hum of engines and the flash of distant explosions. What was once a quiet rural expanse has become a stage for a new kind of warfare, one that unfolds silently above the clouds and under the cover of darkness. Ukrainian drones are rewriting the rules of modern conflict, using advanced technology to strike at the very core of Russia's economy, its vital oil pipelines. These unmanned aerial vehicles, guided by precision and strategy, are able to reach targets deep within Russian territory, far beyond the traditional front lines. On August 17, 2025, a coordinated drone strike hit a critical pumping station near Unecha in the Bryansk region. The aftermath was immediate and dramatic. Flames lighting up the night sky, emergency crews scrambling to contain the damage, and a vital piece of infrastructure left in ruins. This calculated attack targeted the Druzhba pipeline, one of the largest and most important oil arteries in the region. Stretching thousands of kilometers, the Druzhba pipeline is a vital economic lifeline, carrying oil not just to Russia, but also to its neighbors and trading partners. The explosions sent a clear and unmistakable message. Ukraine now has the capability to inflict significant economic pain, even deep inside Russian territory. The psychological impact of these strikes is as powerful as the physical damage, shaking the sense of security in areas once considered safe. This escalation bypasses traditional front lines entirely, disrupting the flow of oil that fuels Russia's war machine. With pumps halted and oil spilling into the countryside, the consequences ripple far beyond the immediate blast zone, threatening the stability of energy supplies across the region. The implications of these attacks are global, sending shockwaves through international oil markets and affecting not just Moscow but also Belarus, a key Russian ally whose own economy is deeply intertwined with Russian energy exports. President Lukashenko of Belarus now faces mounting economic instability, as his nation relies heavily on the steady flow of discounted Russian oil. With supplies threatened, Belarusian refineries and industries are bracing for shortages and rising costs. Russian officials have tried to downplay the extent of the damage, insisting that repairs are underway and the situation is under control. However, local sources and independent reports tell a different story, describing significant disruption and uncertainty on the ground. The attack highlights a critical vulnerability for Russia. Its vast territory, once seen as a strategic advantage, now exposes countless miles of infrastructure to potential strikes, making defense and security a daunting challenge. For Belarus, the stakes are high. Its economy, already fragile and dependent on Russian oil at discounted rates, is now at risk of further destabilization, with potential consequences for jobs, industry, and daily life. These strikes have opened a new front in the conflict, one that targets economic lifelines and critical infrastructure, catching Belarus in the crossfire and signaling a new era of hybrid warfare, where the battlefield extends far beyond the trenches. The Druzhba pipeline is a colossal Soviet-era engineering feat, stretching over 4,000 kilometers. This massive infrastructure project was designed to transport vast quantities of oil across continents, linking Russia with Europe in a web of energy dependency. Its construction was a testament to the engineering prowess of its time, overcoming geographical and political challenges. It carries Russian crude oil to Europe, a symbol of economic interdependence now weaponized. This pipeline has become a strategic asset, a tool of influence wielded by Russia to exert pressure on European nations, showcasing the delicate balance of power in energy politics. For Russia, Druzhba is a critical revenue stream and geopolitical tool. It represents not just economic gain but also a means to project power and influence across borders, making it an essential component of Russia's foreign policy strategy. European nations, especially landlocked ones, rely heavily on its affordable energy. The pipeline ensures a steady supply of oil, crucial for maintaining their economies and energy security, highlighting their vulnerability to disruptions. Belarus, both a transit country and beneficiary, refines Russian oil for profit. This arrangement has allowed Belarus to develop a lucrative refining industry, benefiting from its strategic location along the pipeline. The pipeline's route makes Belarus a crucial choke point, historically giving Minsk leverage over Moscow. This leverage has been a significant factor in Belarus's political and economic dealings with Russia, allowing it to negotiate favorable terms. However, any disruption hurts Belarus more than Russia. The country's economy is heavily reliant on the continuous flow of oil, and any interruption can have severe consequences for its financial stability. The recent Ukrainian strikes have shifted this dynamic, with threats now coming from the sky. These aerial threats have introduced a new level of uncertainty, challenging the traditional power dynamics and security of the pipeline. Belarus's economic model, built on uninterrupted Russian oil, is under threat. The potential for disruption has forced Belarus to reconsider its economic strategies and seek alternative solutions to ensure stability. The strikes target the pipeline before it reaches Belarus, flipping the power dynamic. This shift has altered the balance of power, with new vulnerabilities exposed and the need for enhanced security measures. The threat is no longer from Minsk or Moscow but from above. This new reality has prompted a re-evaluation of security protocols as the skies become the new frontier in the battle for control over this vital artery of energy. The attacks on the Druzhba pipeline are precise strikes on vulnerable points. A pipeline is a complex system of pumping stations and control centers. Ukraine targets these nodes, like the station near Unecha, to paralyze sections of the pipeline. A successful strike causes a rapid loss of pressure, halting oil flow. Belarus's refineries, operating on just-in-time supply, face immediate shutdowns. Repeated attacks create uncertainty, forcing operators to run at lower pressures. The strikes also target electrical substations and communication lines, creating cascading failures. The psychological impact is significant, stretching Russian defenses thin. Personnel at remote stations face constant fear of drone attacks. The strikes expose Russia's energy infrastructure as vulnerable. A symbol of power becomes a sprawling liability with countless weak points. When the flow of oil through the Druzhba pipeline comes to a sudden stop, Belarus feels the impact almost instantly. This vital artery, stretching thousands of kilometers from Russia, is the lifeblood of Belarus's energy system, and any disruption sends shockwaves through the entire country. Refineries, which depend on a steady supply of crude, are forced into costly and complex shutdowns. These abrupt halts not only risk damaging sensitive equipment, but also require expensive and time-consuming restarts, putting further strain on the industry. While Belarus does maintain strategic reserves to cushion short-term outages, these stockpiles are limited. If the disruption drags on, reserves quickly dwindle, leaving the country vulnerable to a full-blown energy crisis. In response, the government is forced to halt fuel exports, cutting off a crucial source of foreign currency and straining the national budget. This move sends ripples through the economy, affecting trade partners and government revenues alike. At home, domestic fuel supplies tighten rapidly. Long lines form at gas stations, rationing is introduced, and public frustration grows as people worry about how they'll get to work or heat their homes. Fuel prices, which are usually kept low through government subsidies, begin to rise under pressure. This sparks anger and anxiety among citizens who are already feeling the pinch from other economic challenges. The pain doesn't stop at the pump. Agriculture and logistics, both heavily reliant on fuel, are hit hard. Tractors and harvesters sit idle, warehouses empty, and truck drivers wait for deliveries that may never come. For farmers, a fuel shortage during the critical harvest season could spell disaster, threatening entire crops and the country's food security. Transportation networks grind to a halt. Highways empty, freight trains stop running, and goods can't move across the country, disrupting supply chains and daily life. If the disruption continues, the consequences escalate. Shops and factories close, unemployment rises, and protests erupt as people demand solutions to the growing crisis. Belarus's economy, already isolated from much of the world, faces mounting pressure. The currency weakens, and financial uncertainty spreads. The ripple effect is felt in every home. Power outages become more frequent, grocery shelves empty, and daily routines are upended for families and children alike. These strikes don't just create a fuel crisis, they threaten to unravel the entire economy, pushing Belarus to the brink of collapse and sparking widespread unrest. In the end, Belarus finds itself in a precarious position, deeply reliant on Russian oil and vulnerable to every twist and turn in the flow of energy from east to west. After an attack, the priority is to contain damage and restore flow. Engineers isolate the damaged section, preventing further spills. Emergency crews assess damage and begin cleanup. The focus shifts to creating workarounds, using bypass lines or rerouting oil. Pressure management is key, but it strains equipment and reduces throughput. Belarus faces anxiety, relying on Russian updates for refinery operations. Each hour of downtime means lost revenue and rising costs. Workarounds highlight infrastructure weaknesses, increasing mechanical failure risks. Short-term fixes, can't restore full capacity, leading to chronic supply reduction. Russia and Belarus remain in crisis management, patching a vulnerable system. Repairing a damaged pumping station is complex and costly. Sanctions make acquiring Western parts difficult, causing delays. Russia relies on domestic manufacturing or clandestine procurement. Repair timelines stretch, keeping pipeline segments crippled. Skilled engineers are in high demand, stretched thin by repeated attacks. Financial costs are staggering with direct repair and security expenses. Russia invests heavily in infrastructure protection, diverting resources from the front lines. Security costs become a permanent tax on oil flow. Belarus faces dread as repair delays reduce oil supply and revenue. The situation exposes Belarus's economic fragility, reliant on Russian energy security. The long road to repair is paved with uncertainty and expense. Belarus is left powerless, a passive victim of conflict. The Druzhba threat strains Belarus's economy, breaking its model. Revenue from refining cheap Russian crude falters, tightening the state budget. Government funds for salaries and security dwindle, risking political stability. Fuel price hikes could trigger public anger or drain reserves, leading to bankruptcy. Economic pressure drives Belarus deeper into Moscow's embrace. Lukashenko's bargaining power evaporates, increasing reliance on Russian support. Belarus becomes a hostage, its fate tied to Ukrainian drones and Russian defenses. The cycle of dependency and vulnerability continues, with no escape. Belarus's energy future hinges on three scenarios. The first is short, intermittent disruptions with temporary shortages and price volatility. The economy survives but weakens, relying on reserves and Russian aid. The second scenario involves medium-term outages with frequent damaging attacks. Belarus faces a rolling economic crisis with permanent fuel rationing and export collapse. Social unrest rises, forcing increased repression and isolation. The third scenario is a long-term severing of the pipeline, leading to economic collapse. Refineries become useless, triggering a humanitarian crisis and state disintegration. Lukashenko's regime likely wouldn't survive such a shock. The likelihood depends on Ukrainian drone evolution and Russian countermeasures. Belarus can only watch as its fate is decided by external forces. The scenarios highlight the precariousness of Belarus's position. Headlines provoke reactions, but real indicators reveal Belarus's risk. Fuel prices and availability at pumps show supply crunches. Social media and satellite imagery provide insights beyond state media. Refinery operations, tracked by satellite, indicate supply status. Financial indicators like export quotas and bond values reveal economic strain. Rising borrowing costs reflect instability. Official statements on reserves show economic pressure. The attacks shift the strategic landscape, ending Belarus's era of cheap oil. The real crisis is measured in storage levels, pump prices, and dwindling options. Monitoring these indicators is essential to understanding the future.